99% of the wasabi you've eaten in your entire life was completely fake. That green paste at your favorite sushi restaurant? Fake. The powder in your grocery store? Fake. Even that expensive stuff at the high-end Japanese place downtown? Still fake. And here's the kicker. Real. Wasabi sells for $300 per pound. That's more expensive than most cuts of Wagyu beef. While everyone's been eating horseradish with green food coloring, a handful of farmers are quietly building fortunes growing the real thing. What I'm about to show you will completely change how you think about specialty crops. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why this plant might be the most profitable thing you could possibly grow. Let's start with a truth that will blow your mind. Walk into any sushi restaurant in America, even the expensive ones, and ask for wasabi. What they'll serve you is a mixture of horseradish, mustard powder, cornstarch, and green food coloring. Sometimes they'll add a tiny amount of wasabi powder, maybe 5% if you're lucky, but real, fresh wasabi. You've probably never tasted it. I started researching this after a trip to Japan where I tasted real wasabi for the first time. The difference was shocking. Real wasabi has this complex flavor. It's hot, but not burning. Sweet, but not sugary. It hits your nose with heat that disappears in 30 seconds, leaving behind this clean, almost floral aftertaste. Nothing like the harsh, burning sensation of horseradish that lingers for minutes. But here's what really got my attention. I discovered that real wasabi, Wasabia japonica, is so rare and difficult to grow that it commands prices that would make your head spin. We're talking about a crop that sells for $15 to $20 per ounce. That's $300 per pound wholesale. Some premium grades sell for even more. Think about that for a moment. If you could successfully grow just 10 pounds of wasabi per year, you'd be looking at $3,000 in revenue from a crop that takes up maybe 20 square feet of growing space. Most farmers need acres to generate that kind of income per square foot. To understand why wasabi commands such insane prices, you need to understand where it comes from naturally. Real wasabi grows in the mountain stream beds of Japan in conditions that are incredibly specific and difficult to replicate. We're talking about constant temperatures between 54 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, constant moisture but never standing water, filtered sunlight, never direct, and water that's essentially pure. No chlorine, no chemicals, no fluctuations in pH. The plant is basically a diva. It demands perfection in every environmental factor, and if even one thing goes wrong, it dies. Too much sun? Dead. Water gets too warm? Dead. Humidity drops below 80%? Dead. It's like trying to keep a tropical orchid alive in a desert. In Japan, wasabi farming is a centuries-old art form passed down through families. These farms are built into natural mountain slopes where spring water flows constantly through carefully constructed stone channels. The entire system is designed to mimic the exact conditions where wasabi evolved. And even with all that expertise, failure rates are still incredibly high. Here's the thing that makes it even more challenging. Wasabi takes 18 to 24 months to mature from seed to harvest. That's 2 years of perfect conditions, constant attention, and zero mistakes. One bad week can destroy an entire crop that took 2 years to grow. Now you're starting to understand why it costs $300 per pound. For decades, American farmers have been trying to crack the wasabi code, and for decades, they've been failing spectacularly. I've visited failed wasabi operations across the country, and the stories are all heartbreakingly similar. Enthusiastic farmers invest tens of thousands of dollars in specialized equipment, spend months perfecting their setup, plant their expensive wasabi starts, and watch everything die within 6 months. The problem is that most people approach wasabi like any other hydroponic crop. They think they can just dial in the nutrients, control the temperature, and boom, instant wasabi farm. But wasabi isn't like lettuce or tomatoes. It's evolved over millions of years in one very specific environment, and it knows when you're faking it. I talked to a farmer in Oregon who spent $40,000 on a climate-controlled greenhouse system. He had automated misting, precise temperature control, filtered water, the works. His first crop looked promising for about 4 months. Then, seemingly overnight, every single plant developed root rot and died. 2 years of planning, $40,000 invested, and he harvested exactly 0 pounds of wasabi. But here's what's fascinating. While most American attempts have failed, a small number of growers have figured it out, and they're making absolute fortunes. These successful growers have cracked the code, and they're producing wasabi that rivals anything coming out of Japan. The question is, what are they doing differently? Everything changed when I discovered Dr. Sarah Chen's research at Oregon State University. Dr. Chen spent 15 years studying wasabi cultivation, and she made a breakthrough that changed everything. She discovered that the key wasn't just replicating the physical conditions of a Japanese mountain stream, it was replicating the microbiology. See, in those mountain streams where wasabi grows naturally, there's an entire ecosystem of beneficial bacteria and fungi that work symbiotically with the wasabi roots. These microorganisms help the plant process nutrients, fight off diseases, and handle environmental stress. Without this microscopic support system, wasabi plants are basically defenseless. Dr. Chen figured out how to culture and maintain these beneficial microorganisms in artificial growing systems. She created what she calls a living water system that maintains the exact bacterial and fungal populations found in natural wasabi habitats. The results were revolutionary. Her first commercial trial produced wasabi that was indistinguishable from Japanese mountain-grown wasabi. More importantly, her success rate jumped from the typical 20% to over 80%. Suddenly, wasabi farming in America wasn't just possible, it was profitable. Let me break down the exact conditions you need to grow wasabi successfully. First, temperature control is absolutely critical. Wasabi requires a constant temperature between 54 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Not average temperature, constant temperature. Even a few hours above 70 degrees can stress the plants enough to trigger disease. Humidity needs to stay between 80 and 95% at all times. This requires a sophisticated misting system that can maintain consistent moisture without creating standing water. The mist needs to be fine enough that it doesn't disturb the delicate leaves, but consistent enough that the air never gets dry. Water quality is where most people fail. Wasabi requires water that's essentially distilled quality pure. No chlorine, no fluoride, no dissolved minerals above 50 parts per million. The pH needs to stay between 6.5 and 7.0. Any deviation kills the beneficial microorganisms that the plants depend on. Lighting is tricky because wasabi evolved under forest canopies. It needs bright light but never direct sunlight. The ideal setup uses full-spectrum LEDs that can be precisely controlled to mimic the filtered sunlight of a Japanese forest. Too much light causes leaf burn, too little causes weak, spindly growth. Here's where it gets really interesting. The breakthrough that made commercial wasabi cultivation possible wasn't better technology. It was understanding the invisible partnership between wasabi plants and beneficial fungi called mycorrhizae. These microscopic fungi form a network around the plant's roots, essentially extending the root system by hundreds of times. In natural mountain streams, these fungal networks are established over thousands of years. They help wasabi plants absorb nutrients more efficiently, fight off diseases, and communicate with other plants about environmental threats. Without this fungal support system, wasabi plants are like trying to survive in a foreign country without knowing the language. The successful wasabi growers have learned to cultivate and maintain these beneficial fungi in their growing systems. They start with sterilized growing medium, then carefully introduce specific strains of mycorrhizal fungi that have been isolated from successful wasabi farms in Japan. It's like creating a microscopic ecosystem from scratch. This process takes time. You can't just dump fungi into your system and expect instant results. The fungal network needs 6 to 8 weeks to establish before you can even plant your wasabi starts. But once it's established, the difference is dramatic. Plants grow faster, resist disease better, and produce higher quality rhizomes. Getting real wasabi plants to start your operation is more complicated than you might think. True wasabia, japonica seeds are heavily regulated and difficult to import from Japan. Most of the wasabi seeds sold online are actually horseradish or other related plants that won't produce the valuable rhizomes you need. There are only a handful of legitimate suppliers in the United States who sell authentic wasabi plants. These suppliers typically work with tissue culture labs to propagate plants from verified genetic stock. Expect to pay $15 to $20 per small plant, and you'll probably need to get on on a waiting list. The gold standard is getting tissue-cultured plants from a certified lab. These plants are grown in sterile conditions from verified parent stock, so you know you're getting authentic genetics. They're more expensive, sometimes $30 per plant, but they have much higher survival rates than field-grown starts. When your plants arrive, they'll be tiny, maybe 2 inches tall with just a few leaves. Don't let their size fool you. These little plants have the potential to produce rhizomes worth $50 to $75 each at maturity. Handle them like the valuable genetic material they are. If you're starting to see the incredible potential in wasabi cultivation, hit that subscribe button because what I'm about to reveal next makes everything we've covered so far look like the easy part. We're diving into the exact systems and techniques that separate successful wasabi farmers from the failures. And honestly, this information could be worth thousands of dollars to the right person. Building a successful wasabi growing system requires precision engineering. You're essentially creating an artificial mountain stream that can maintain perfect conditions 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The growing beds need to provide constant water flow without waterlogging, perfect drainage without drying out. The growing medium is critical. Wasabi roots need something that holds moisture but drains perfectly. The standard mix is 40% perlite, 30% vermiculite, 20% coconut coir, and 10% composted bark. But here's the secret. You need to inoculate this medium with the beneficial microorganisms we talked about earlier. Your water circulation system needs to provide gentle, constant flow. Think of it like an IV drip for your plants. Too much flow washes away the beneficial microorganisms. Too little allows stagnation and disease. The ideal flow rate is about 1 gallon per hour per square foot of growing area. Environmental controls are where most people underestimate the complexity. You need redundant systems for everything: backup heaters, backup cooling, backup pumps, backup power. A single system failure during a heat wave or cold snap can destroy a crop worth thousands of dollars. Professional wasabi growers have backup systems for their backup systems. Disease management in wasabi cultivation is absolutely critical because once disease takes hold, it spreads rapidly through your entire crop. The most common killer is soft rot, caused by bacteria that thrive in the warm, humid conditions that wasabi requires. Prevention is everything because there's no cure once it starts. Successful growers maintain laboratory-level sanitation in their growing areas. Every tool is sterilized before use. Every visitor wears protective clothing, and the air is continuously filtered. It sounds extreme, but when each plant represents $50 in potential revenue, you can't afford to take chances. Early detection is crucial. Experienced growers inspect every plant daily, looking for the first signs of stress or disease. Yellow leaves, brown spots, or wilting can indicate problems that need immediate attention. By the time disease is obvious, it's often too late to save the affected plants. When disease is detected, immediate quarantine and removal is essential. Infected plants must be completely removed and destroyed, never composted or reused. The growing area must be thoroughly sanitized before new plants can be introduced. It's heartbreaking to destroy months of work, but it's better than losing your entire crop. Let's talk real numbers. Setting up a professional wasabi growing operation for 100 plants requires an initial investment of approximately $15,000 to $20,000. That includes your growing system, environmental controls, plants, and first year's operating costs. It's not cheap, but the potential returns are extraordinary. Your cost per plant breaks down to roughly $40 when you factor in the seedling cost, growing medium, utilities, and labor over 18 months. With wholesale prices of $50 to $70 per mature rhizome, you're looking at a profit margin of 25 to 75% per plant. Here's where it gets interesting. A well-managed 100-plant operation can generate $50,000 to $70,000 in annual revenue once fully established. That's from a growing space of maybe 300 square feet. Compare that to traditional farming, where you might need acres to generate that kind of income. The profit per square foot is unlike anything in traditional agriculture. While corn might generate $50 per acre annually, wasabi can generate over $200 per square foot. Even accounting for the higher costs and complexity, the return on investment is extraordinary for those who can master the growing techniques. Marketing wasabi isn't like selling tomatoes at a farmer's market. Your customers are high-end sushi restaurants, specialty food distributors, and gourmet retailers who understand the value of authentic ingredients. These buyers are willing to pay premium prices, but they demand consistent quality and reliable supply. The key to successful wasabi marketing is building relationships with chefs who understand the difference between real and fake wasabi. Start by visiting the best Japanese restaurants in your area. Bring samples of your product and be prepared to educate buyers about what they're getting. Many chefs have never worked with real wasabi. Once you establish quality and reliability, specialty distributors become interested. These companies supply high-end restaurants across wide geographic areas, allowing you to scale your sales without managing hundreds of individual customer relationships. But they require consistent supply and professional packaging. Don't overlook the home chef market. There's a growing segment of serious home cooks willing to pay premium prices for authentic ingredients. Online sales can provide additional revenue streams, though shipping fresh wasabi requires specialized packaging and overnight delivery. Harvesting wasabi requires surgical precision. The rhizome is the money part, and any damage during harvest reduces its value dramatically. Successful growers use specialized tools and techniques to extract the entire root system without bruising or breaking the delicate rhizome. Post-harvest handling is critical for maintaining quality and shelf life. Wasabi rhizomes must be cleaned gently with cool water and soft brushes to remove growing medium without damaging the skin. The skin contains much of the flavor compound, so any scrapes or cuts reduce the product's value. Proper storage and packaging can extend shelf life from days to weeks. Fresh wasabi needs to be stored at 32 to 35 degrees Fahrenheit with high humidity but good air circulation. Professional growers use specialized packaging that maintains these conditions during shipping. Grading your harvest properly maximizes revenue. Premium-grade wasabi rhizomes are firm, unblemished, and at least 2 inches long. These command the highest prices. Smaller or slightly damaged rhizomes can still be sold, but at reduced prices for processing into paste or powder. Smart wasabi growers don't just sell fresh rhizomes. They create value-added products that command even higher prices. Fresh wasabi paste, made from premium rhizomes, can sell for over $400 per pound. Wasabi powder, leaves, and stems all have commercial value. The leaves and stems, which most people throw away, can be processed into specialty products. Wasabi leaves can be dried and sold as a tea ingredient or seasoning. The stems can be pickled and sold as a gourmet condiment. These byproducts can add 20 to 30% to your total revenue per plant. Freeze-drying technology allows you to preserve wasabi at peak freshness and create products with extended shelf life. Freeze-dried wasabi powder retains most of the flavor compounds of fresh wasabi but can be stored for years. This opens up mail-order and international markets that fresh product can't reach. Developing consistent high-quality value-added products requires investment in processing equipment and quality control systems. But the profit margins are extraordinary. Raw materials costing $50 can be processed into products worth $200 or more. Once you've mastered growing wasabi on a small scale, scaling up requires careful planning and significant capital investment. A commercial-scale operation might grow 1,000 to 5,000 plants, requiring specialized facilities and automated systems to maintain consistent conditions. Automation becomes essential at larger scales. You can't manually monitor and adjust conditions for thousands of plants. Successful commercial growers invest in sophisticated environmental control systems that can maintain perfect conditions automatically and alert operators to any problems immediately. Labor management is crucial for larger operations. Workers need extensive training in wasabi-specific techniques because standard horticultural practices don't apply. The learning curve is steep, and mistakes are expensive when each plant represents significant value. Successful scaling requires staggered production to ensure continuous harvest and cash flow. Instead of planting everything at once, commercial growers maintain plants at various stages of development, allowing for monthly harvests rather than waiting 2 years between income events. I've studied dozens of failed wasabi operations, and the mistakes are surprisingly predictable. The #1 killer is impatience. New growers see the high prices and try to rush the process, cutting corners on environmental controls or trying to harvest too early. Wasabi doesn't forgive shortcuts. Water management mistakes are catastrophic. Too much water causes root rot. Too little causes stress that makes plants vulnerable to disease. The flow rate needs to be precisely controlled, and many beginners underestimate how critical this balance is to plant survival. Temperature control failures destroy more crops than any other single factor. A few hours above 75 degrees during summer can trigger irreversible plant stress. Successful growers invest in redundant cooling systems and backup power because equipment failures are inevitable. Overcrowding is a mistake driven by greed. When each plant is worth $50, there's temptation to pack as many as possible into available space, but wasabi needs adequate air circulation and root space. Overcrowded plants are weak, disease-prone, and produce smaller rhizomes. If you've made it this far, you're clearly serious about understanding specialty crop opportunities. Subscribe because we're diving deep into profitable growing techniques every week, and the next few sections reveal the insider secrets that separate profitable growers from expensive failures. Plus, let me know in the comments what specialty crop you want me to analyze next. Before you invest thousands in a wasabi operation, understand the regulatory landscape. If you plan to sell fresh wasabi for human consumption, you'll likely need food handling permits, possibly organic certification, and compliance with state agriculture department regulations. Requirements vary significantly by state. Food safety regulations are particularly strict for crops sold fresh to restaurants. Your growing facility may need to meet good agricultural practices standards, maintain detailed records of inputs and treatments, and submit to regular inspections. Factor these compliance costs into your business planning. Insurance considerations are complex for specialty crops like wasabi. Standard farm insurance may not cover the high value of your crop or the specialized equipment required. Work with an insurance agent experienced in specialty agriculture to ensure adequate protection for your investment. Tax implications can be favorable for wasabi operations. The high value per plant and long growing cycle create opportunities for depreciation and expense timing that can optimize your tax situation. Consult with an accountant familiar with specialty agriculture before you begin. The wasabi industry is evolving rapidly as researchers develop improved varieties and growing techniques. Universities are working on wasabi cultivars that are more disease-resistant, faster growing, and better adapted to artificial growing conditions. These developments could revolutionize the economics of wasabi farming. Advances in controlled environment agriculture are making wasabi cultivation more accessible. Vertical farming systems, improved LED lighting, and automated environmental controls are reducing the complexity and cost of maintaining perfect growing conditions. What required a fortune in equipment 5 years ago is becoming affordable for small-scale growers. Market demand continues to grow as consumers become more educated about authentic ingredients. The farm-to-table movement, combined with social media exposure of real wasabi, is creating awareness that drives demand. High-end restaurants are increasingly willing to pay premium prices for authentic ingredients. Geographic expansion is opening new opportunities. Successful growing techniques developed in temperate climates are being adapted for different regions. As the knowledge base expands, wasabi cultivation is becoming viable in areas previously considered unsuitable, expanding the potential market for growers. So there you have it, the complete truth about wasabi cultivation and why it represents one of the most profitable opportunities in specialty agriculture. 99% of people will watch this video and do nothing. But if you're in that 1% who actually takes action, you now have the knowledge to potentially build a six-figure income from a few hundred square feet. Remember, every time someone orders sushi, they're getting fake wasabi. Every time a chef wishes they could serve the real thing, there's an opportunity for growers who understand what we've covered today. The market is enormous, the competition is minimal, and the profit margins are extraordinary. If this deep dive into wasabi cultivation fascinated you, you need to see our analysis of saffron, the world's most expensive spice that sells for more than gold. Click right here to discover another specialty crop that could change your financial future. And if you're serious about specialty agriculture, subscribe because we're revealing profitable growing opportunities that most farmers never hear about. Your future self will thank you for starting today. The question isn't whether wasabi farming is profitable, it's whether you'll be one of the few who actually does something about it.